The idea of a player doing things on the field that are not humanly possible is something that we all love to latch onto, since it gives us a sense of being able to control elements that transcend all the achievements humanity has claimed for centuries. Indeed, we love those athletes mainly because what they achieve in life is exactly the sort of life we all dream of. In the last 100 years, many players have made history by demonstrating an unparalleled ability on the ball. However, quite a few of these otherworldly legends fall in the category of a flawed genius. A truly one-of-a-kind life form that, apart from God-gifted ability, has a flair for courting all sorts of negative elements life has on offer. These players dazzled on the pitch, but off it, they were a destructive force for all the wrong reasons. Eventually, their demons would chase them inside the field of play. While most industries would never put a wager on such an individual, football has shown a lot of openness by tolerating such flawed yet truly gifted characters. This tendency has often been questioned, and at some times, a club's bet plays off when an erratic individual but a talented player delivers the goods. And this is what we're going to discuss today on your favourite channel, Goalside, where we present to you the beautiful game in a different manner. Make sure to subscribe to our channel so that you never have to miss out on any of our upcoming videos. Today, we're going to talk about perhaps the greatest flawed genius the game has ever seen, Diego Armando Maradona. The pint-sized Argentine wizard's career is the stuff of legends, and he's still as revered today as he was decades ago when he was in his element on the field, dazzling us with his skills and leaving defenders gasping for air and coughing the dust off of their mouths. That's the impact the controversial forward had, but despite all his issues, Maradona is widely considered the greatest player to have ever set foot on a football field. Before we begin, make sure to answer a question during the video in order to have a chance of winning a $100 Amazon gift card. For many years, Maradona is mentioned with the same reverence as the likes of Pelé, Puskás, Beckenbauer, Cruyff, and others. Despite his extensively documented struggles, the Argentine is still considered a true legend of the game, which speaks volumes of the impact he made on the game. If you ever had the chance to see the 1986 World Cup in Mexico, you'll know just how much the game meant to him and how much Maradona meant to football. Napoli haven't won anything of great note in the last 20 years or so, but the last time they did was actually driven by a supercharged Maradona. The city has never been the same since. Coming up against some of the greatest players the game has ever produced, such as Ruud Gullit, Rossi, Michel Platini, Marco van Basten, Franco Baresi, Falcao, and Lothar Matthäus, Maradona made them look like ordinary players, as Napoli went on to win a decent amount of silverware. When Barcelona decided to cash in on their unpredictable star in 1984, it was perhaps the beginning of something beautiful and ugly at the same time. The Argentine was set to go for an adventure in Italy where he would be treated like a god by the people and become a global superstar. Being sold to a club based out of one of the most violent cities in Italy meant that there was always going to be some problems. Allegedly, the local mafia was involved in financing the out-of-the-blue move, something the then president, Corrado Freleno, vehemently denied. Indeed, Napoli weren't the most financially strong team in Italy, and neither were they competing for European Cup glory, let alone a Scudetto charge. And while the 1986 World Cup and the Jekyll and Hyde moment in the game against England is considered his greatest achievement, we beg to differ. Winning 2 Scudettos with Napoli was something that immediately turned global attention to Italian football, while also angering the traditional powerhouses in the shape of Milan, Internazionale, and of course Juventus. Maradona's success brought to the fore the once ignored hatred towards Napoli and its fans, and took us back to those times when the bridge between the north and the south was quite a topic of discussion in the country. And that's why Napoli and Maradona were a match made in heaven, 2 deities that were simply trying to find their place in the world, and it was only defiance that got them this far. And while the people of Naples were celebrating the presence of Maradona, the Great One's decline was happening far away from his admirers. He started interacting with local members of the mafia, spending time with them, partying until Wednesday, while snorting cocaine provided by the mafioso. After taking a few days to get back to his usual self, Maradona would play again and would not show the signs of a player who had become an addict. By 1989, after leading Napoli to their only European trophy, the Argentine requested the club to transfer him. This was a request coming from a man who was on the verge of a breakdown, descending into an addiction there was no getting away from. Freleno sadly said no, and would later on admit that he became his jailer by denying the request. In 1990, Italy hosted the World Cup and Argentina were the reigning champions. Maradona knew that he would be getting a lot of stick from the fans in the country, but the semi-final game against Italy at Napoli's Stadio San Paolo was going to be a homecoming for the proud son of Naples, who was not even born in the city. Maradona even invited local fans to support Argentina in a move that was taken as pure disrespect. Indeed, when Argentina knocked out Italy, the forward became a persona non grata. Upon his return for club duty, things had changed and Maradona encountered the wrath of the whole country. Unloved, rejected, the talented star was spinning out of control. His demons finally caught up with him after he was involved in a doping and prostitution scandal. The league slapped him with a ban that lasted more than a year. For many years, Maradona was getting away with his demons off the field. His frenetic, tragic and somewhat bizarre finale at Napoli before the drugs bust was followed by a rehabilitation cameo before that too came to a bitter end in Dallas in the summer of '94. No matter what happened, Maradona was always looked at with admiration, reverence and sadness at the same time. He was a star, but not the one that shines brightest and makes people feel good. It was only Argentina where he was loved unconditionally in spite of his many antics. He returned to La Bombonera and kept insisting that it was FIFA that had conspired to ruin his career. The game against Cologne, Maradona's first, served as yet another reminder about how far his stock has fallen. The game in itself was a carnival. Maradona didn't move much, but that didn't matter. At least he was still there on the field. Maradona had two personalities. One was a young kid raised in the slums of Via Fiorito, where he kept his head above the dirty laundry long enough to stay ahead of the curve. His alter ego, though, was in line with a peculiar madness that comes with a new life of no financial troubles. The Argentine was clearly not well equipped to deal with two different lives. It was his alter ego that mutated at a phenomenal speed and eventually took over his body, so much that there was pretty much nothing left of his original self. Indeed, there were certain traits about Maradona that contradicted him. At one side you saw a giant of a man who represented the common people and took on FIFA and spoke out at great lengths about corruption within the game, but on the other side you would see perhaps the first truly commercialised modern age footballer. Maradona did represent the people and put his heart and soul on the pitch, but at the same time he's also remembered as a great example of how corruption can ruin anyone. But even today, despite all of his problems and proclivity to press the self-destruct button whenever he chooses to, Maradona remains the greatest person born in Argentina. While Lionel Messi continues making records, the Barcelona man has struggled to come out of Maradona's shadow. Perhaps it is because the 1986 World Cup still remains a point of reference. In all honesty, Maradona peaked at a very early age. His is a story of a genius who squandered everything and is one of the greatest tragedies in football history. At Naples, Maradona became a huge star, but it was also because in that very city, everything started going downhill. Every time he took on the field, it looked as if he'd gained weight. As the manager of Argentina, he proved to be the greatest example of the famous saying, "Great players don't make great coaches." So how much of Maradona's achievements affected the teams where he shone the brightest? Napoli's last Scudetto triumph came in the 1989-90 season, and they haven't won the title since. The likes of Juventus, Internazionale and even AS Roma are much closer to winning the titles in the coming years than Napoli. So here's your question. Which Argentinian player did Maradona's daughter marry? Answer this in the comments and you could win a $100 Amazon gift card. Argentina haven't fared that well either, with the Albicelestes' 1984 World Cup triumph looking more and more like a one-off. Is this the subplot of a typical Maradona story? So why is it that the flawed genius is still loved so much everywhere? The answer to that would be pretty much self-explanatory if we look at ourselves in the mirror. All of us have our flaws and most of us don't like to own up to that. Maradona, however, oozes raw humanity and has the courage to throw it out into the open without fretting about the consequences. That's why we love him. In his very own way, the legendary forward lets us know that he understands us and perhaps even tries to tell us that it's okay to be imperfect and to try and keep a leash on our demons in front of the world. Maradona is like a Venn diagram, a very complicated one for that matter. Some call him a cheat for scoring the hand of God goal. Some call him a genius for scoring that amazing goal against England in the same game where he scored with his hand. Some call him a madman for causing a scene in a VIP box at the 2018 FIFA World Cup. Some call him a wicked man for being angry at some kids who were just asking for his autograph. He's even been considered a joke by many around the world due to the manner in which he's carried himself. Regardless of what we think, at the end of the day, while his story is a truly tragic one, does it make sense for us to say that without his demons, Diego Armando Maradona may never have been able to send the world into a state of trance the moment the ball found its way to his feet? There are certain players who might never be who they are without certain traits. Take the ultra-competitiveness out of Luis Suarez and he might never have become such an amazing player. Take the fight out of him and Wayne Rooney might never have enjoyed a great career at Manchester United. So how did we ever expect Maradona to become a genius without carrying a box full of demons?